Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel.
I know that my wife is cheating on me. I just know it. But damn it, I can't catch her. It is Saturday morning, and I am sitting with my lawyer. My lawyer, Roscoe Noble, handled the divorce from my first wife, so he has experience with these matters. He hired a private detective to check my suspicions. What is wrong with me? My first wife started cheating on me almost before the new sheets came off her wedding bed. Now my new wife is doing the same thing. I must have "please cheat on me" written on my forehead. The private detective shook my hand and introduced himself as Tom Pickens. He was a slightly overweight, short man in khaki pants and a plain polo shirt. He was unremarkable and would never stand out in a crowd. Probably a good trait for a private detective. We all sat down. Roscoe said, "Okay, Tom, tell us what you found." Tom cleared his throat. "Yes, sir, Mr. Noble. I started working on this case on Monday morning, right after our conversation. I went straight to the college and saw Mrs. Ann Powers' car in her designated parking spot. I walked past her office and observed her inside." I interrupted him. "Tom, can you just give us an overview and include the details in your report?" Tom replied, "Oh, of course, Mr. Powers." Tom paused to gather his thoughts, then continued, "I kept Mrs. Powers under observation all week until last night. She leaves the house between 8 o'clock and 8:15, goes straight to the college, and returns home between 4 o'clock and 5:30 in the evening. Her daily routine seems quite normal. Conferences with students, faculty meetings, office work, visits to the library and the like. She usually goes to the gym around 11 o'clock and then eats a packed lunch at her desk. There is only one unusual activity. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Mrs. Powers left the college between 1 o'clock and 1:10, walked through downtown, and entered Henry's Continental Restaurant and Fine Food Store. She left there between 3:45 and 4:10. Roscoe asked, "Did she meet anyone for lunch? Were you able to determine with whom?" I interrupted, "No, Henry serves dinner only on Tuesdays and Saturdays. It's one of our favorite restaurants. It's very popular among the academic crowd. The owner is Henry Manigault. He's a promising chef and restaurateur." Roscoe asked, "Anything between Anne and Henry? Any hint of attraction, stolen kisses, long embraces, and the like?" "Come on, Roscoe, this is the South. Women here kiss and hug everyone like a 5-second acquaintance was a long-lost uncle, aunt, or boyfriend. We all know each other, and there's nothing unusual between them that I know of. But then again, I'm just the husband, so I'll be the last to know," I muttered. "Okay, is there any reasonable, innocent explanation for why Anne spent 3 hours in a closed restaurant 3 times this week?" asked Roscoe. I shrugged and said, "Henry is a charming, sociable guy. He flirts with all the women, including Anne, and they all adore him. So who knows?" Tom interjected, "Well, the restaurant has a fine food store that's open during regular business hours and offers cooking classes every other Saturday. However, when Mrs. Powers was there, no classes were being held. I can't imagine Mrs. Powers spending 3 hours having fun in that small store." I dryly added, "I assure you that's impossible. Anne and fine cuisine? Definitely terra incognita for her." Tom continued, "I walked around the store several times. I didn't see any signs of Mrs. Powers' presence. Moreover, Henry Manigault didn't appear, and when someone asked about him, the saleswoman dryly replied that he was unavailable. I was drawing attention to myself, so I stopped going in. On Wednesday, my wife went in a few times. She didn't see Mrs. Powers either. I'm also charging the usual rates for my wife's time." Roscoe said, "That's fair, Tom. No problem. What else do you have?" Tom sighed. "Not much. This is a tough case. Mrs. Powers must be the most skilled cheating wife I've ever encountered. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Powers." I just waved for him to continue. Tom continued, "My wife is conducting electronic surveillance and checking the contacts of both Mrs. Powers and Henry Manigault. She couldn't find anything significant on either of them. Henry is single and has always had one or more girlfriends, but there's nothing scandalous about that. Although we have no information about his current girlfriend, he certainly looks cheerful and lively. He apparently hasn't had any relationships with married women, at least nothing we could find. Henry used an online dating service, but many singles do that. He recently stopped using it. The electronic trail of Mrs. Powers is as clean as freshly fallen snow. We checked her finances. No new credit cards, no personal loans, no issues that might arise with companies conducting credit scoring. No public records except for a speeding ticket she received 4 years ago. A clean, orderly history in all respects. Roscoe looked at me. I said, I did the homework you asked for. I went through 3 months of credit card payments and phone records. Nothing I couldn't explain. I checked her mobile phone while she was napping. No strange messages, no unusual calls to unexplained numbers. Nothing on the home computer or in her personal or university email accounts. I have all her passwords. She always forgets them and has to ask me to remind her. She studies history, not technology. I found nothing suspicious. Roscoe sat, pursing his lips. Finally, he said to me, Jim, I want to say that maybe you're just paranoid. It's understandable after your experience with your first gold-digging wife. I really like Anne. You two seem like the perfect couple. But this story with the restaurant is very suspicious. I think things are not always what they seem, I sighed. This makes no sense. Who would have sex for several hours in a closed restaurant? Renting a hotel room is so much more convenient. Or going to his place, he's single. This whole restaurant story just sounds doubtful. Roscoe suddenly started rifling through a folder filled with papers that looked like an accordion. After a minute, he said, Aha, maybe I have something. Tom told me about Henry's restaurant visits on Wednesday evenings. I asked a paralegal to check everything they could find in the courthouse and city archives on Henry. Here's Henry's application for a building permit from 5 years ago, which includes plans for converting the old Johnson department store into his current restaurant. Roscoe flipped through 2 sheets of floor plans so Tom and I could see them. He continued, Here's the first floor. Culinary store, restaurant and bar, restrooms, kitchen area, and storage. The second floor has a large classroom, restrooms, storage, and here in the back, there's an area marked as a studio apartment with its own bathroom and shower. We silently looked at the plans, which showed a one-room apartment. I said, well, chefs are known to work long hours. It might make sense to have a place to sleep at the restaurant, but it's also certainly a convenient love nest. Roscoe nodded. It certainly is. After a pause, he continued, Jim, I'm afraid Anne is deceiving you and entertaining Henry between the sheets. There's no point in sugarcoating it. Tom, continue the surveillance. Jim, keep your eyes and ears open on the home front. Anne is sharp and hides her tracks better than most. She'll make a mistake. They always do. Then we'll catch her just like we caught your first wife. On the way home, my head was pounding. With my first wife, I think I can understand her infidelity. We married too early and too quickly. She was an art student in her final year of college when we got married. Beautiful girl. She was also egocentric and social. Not to mention, she definitely expected a high level of support once married. As for me, I come from a simple construction family. I specialized in civil engineering and was working on my MBA when we got married. My father was drafted into Korea, served as an Army engineer, returned and enrolled in Clemson on the GI Bill. Then he scraped together enough money to buy a concrete plant and made a modest fortune during the post-war boom. Now I understand that my first wife saw dollar signs in me, not a lifelong partner. She got more in the divorce than she could have ever earned with her Bachelor of Arts degree. My dad had a stroke a few years ago, and I ended up taking over the concrete company. I brought modern engineering and business practices to an already successful company. We grew, and now we're incredibly wealthy. My sister went to law school, and with all the litigation in construction and the inevitable involvement in our business, she became a rather wealthy construction law guru in her own right. My first wife must be kicking herself for not being more patient and waiting until the marital tree bore more lucrative financial fruit. But my current wife, Anne, I just can't believe she's also unfaithful. We've been married for just over 2 years. She's 8 years younger than me, but she's a smart, mature woman with a good head on her shoulders. She has a PhD in history and has been working as an assistant professor at the local college for 4 years. We met in a Methodist Sunday school class for single adults shortly after she moved to town. After a year of dating, we got engaged and then married 6 months later. We had a great time getting to know each other, meeting each other's friends and families. We did everything right. Damn it, I swear my family likes her more than they like me. Anne is my best friend, the sex is great, and the family is close-knit. In fact, I do all the cooking because Anne, bless her heart, is a terrible cook. She spent her time becoming an academic muse rather than a domestic goddess. In January, Anne finished her book on the Yamasee Indian War. We all expected it to be typical academic history, professor drudgery. I read the book as a marital duty and was blown away. Anne has a gift for telling history like a novel, bringing that long-ago tragedy to life. I read it all in one Saturday. Damn, it's great. The book was also well received by both professional and popular press. Anne gave interviews to NPR and several local TV stations. She was even invited to a few book awards and has been signing many books and giving talks. Anne is over the moon about the success of her book, but she earned it through hard work. She jokes that once all the royalties are tallied, she'll have made less than half the legal minimum wage. Nonetheless, the book and its professional and popular reception are key factors in Anne's expected promotion to associate professor, possibly next year or shortly thereafter. But once bitten, twice shy. Anne is showing the classic signs of a cheating wife. While working so hard on her book, she gained a few pounds. Not that I'm stupid enough to mention it to her. The book came out in January, and in February, she started going to the gym. Now in July, she's in the best shape I've ever seen her. She looks fantastic. Her first royalty checks were spent on some attractive, sexy outfits and lingerie. She laughed and said she was treating herself. This is uncharacteristic of her, since she's usually an old-fashioned Methodist penny pincher. She teased me, asking if I didn't enjoy seeing her in the new lingerie. Of course I'm thrilled, but I wonder who else might be enjoying the sight of my wife in this sexy lingerie. She's also been very affectionate. Is this just a release from the pressure of writing the book, or a guilty conscience? This summer, Anne isn't teaching, but she still goes to her office every day. She's working on initial ideas for her second book, which she tells me about. She also has 3 graduate students writing their theses, so she has to work with them several times a week. But overall, her workload is light during the summer. The week before last, we finished a major state road paving project early, and I had a free day, which is rare during the construction season. I decided to visit the university to see if I could lure Anne home for some afternoon aerobics in the bedroom, an offer she usually would jump at within minutes. She wasn't in her office, so I checked the main office of the history department to see if she was there. 2 female students were at the reception desk, copying and assembling a massive paperwork project for some professor. I asked, "Hi, I'm looking for my wife, Professor Powers. Have you seen her by any chance?" The 2 girls exchanged glances, suppressing smiles. The blonde replied, yes. She was here recently. She said she was going to the library." As I closed the door behind me, I heard the girls unsuccessfully trying to stifle their laughter. Damn, even the kids know she's cheating on me. I went through the library, and sure enough, Anne wasn't there. That evening, when I poured each of us a glass of Shiraz during happy hour, I casually mentioned, "We finished early today, so I dropped by your office in the afternoon, but you weren't there. The girls at the reception said you had just left for the library." I watched Anne closely. She tensed for a moment, and a slight blush appeared on her cheeks and neck. She looked away when I handed her a glass of wine. "Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you. Yes, I try to spend a few hours in the library every day, researching for my new book." I didn't let on that I had caught her in a blatant lie. They're taking me for a fool. 2 years after marriage is the prime time for a young wife to get bored and start looking, or perhaps more than just looking, beyond the marital fence. Now she's cheating, or am I just paranoid? I know the answer. I went home and the rest of Saturday passed quietly. I did some chores in the yard. Anne was speaking at a bookstore in Augusta, at least that's what she told me. It's entirely possible she was having a passionate affair with her lover at that very moment. When Anne returned home at 6, we went to a friend's place to enjoy the evening and have dinner. Everything seems perfect, but my stomach churns every time I look at my cheating wife. We got up on Sunday morning and went to the early church service. We skipped Sunday school, and I made an omelet for a late breakfast. We enjoyed it while we read the newspaper together. Anne dropped her unexpected announcement on me as we finished our coffee. She gave me a mischievous smile, which used to always signal some crazy, fun idea, usually sexual. Now I just wonder with whom. Honey, I want the house to myself from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock today. Why don't you go play golf? You haven't had the chance to do that in a while, and I want you home exactly at 6 o'clock. I have a surprise for you. I stammered in complete confusion. What? Anne, why? She just laughed cheerfully. Well, silly, if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it? Now grab your clubs and golf shoes and go have some well-deserved fun. I wasn't in the mood to argue, so I grabbed my golf gear and headed out. On the way to the country club, I called Tom on his mobile and instructed the private detective to keep an eye on the house until I returned. I met up with 3 guys at the club, and we played a round of golf. My lack of practice and distracted mental state showed, and as the loser, I bought drinks at the 19th hole when we finished. It was actually a pleasant and relaxing day that improved my sour mood. As I was getting ready to head home, I texted Tom, who was watching my house, and Anne. Anything? Tom's reply was immediate. Nothing. Quiet as a cemetery. Mrs. P came out once to the trash bin. That's it. What's going on? Did she notice our surveillance? Is she really such a brazen cheater that she sends me off to play golf while she brings her lover right under our noses? Our house backs up to a wooded area, and her lover could easily have slipped in unnoticed by Tom. She's really smart and obviously as crafty as the devil. Will I return home to find Henry there? Am I being kicked out? Or has my marriage suddenly become one of those modern open arrangements? Who knows what this woman is capable of? I arrived home at 6 as instructed. I opened the front door and Anne greeted me, handing me a scotch, saying, "Right on time. Good. I saw you pull up. Here's your drink. Come in and sit at the table. I have a surprise for you." Anne was excited and running on high energy. I had no idea what she was planning, and it all puzzled me. It felt just like the old days when we had just gotten married. "But I made this," exclaimed Anne, playfully pouting. "Henry Manigault has been giving me cooking lessons this summer." "What?" was my stunned response. As Anne quickly served the food, she chatted cheerfully. Henry's niece, Jean, was working on her master's thesis with us, and her advisor suddenly had to take a leave for chemotherapy. At the last minute, I took over and helped her with her thesis. Anne paused for a moment. She's a really sweet girl. Anyway, we had to scramble, but we got it done and navigated through the system. She graduated right on schedule in May last year. Henry approached me at the graduation to thank me for helping his niece. He said he overheard you all teasing me at the restaurant about my lack of cooking skills. He offered to give me cooking lessons as a thank you for helping Jean. Anne shrugged and continued chatting. In the summer, I have some free time, so I've been going to his restaurant for cooking lessons a few times a week. At first, it was a bit intimidating, but it's actually a lot of fun. This dinner is my debut in the culinary world. I need to call Henry later and tell him how it went. If you like it, he's willing to continue the lessons and plans to significantly expand my knowledge of haute French cuisine. How about that? I actually have the wife I always hoped for. Now she can cook too.
Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.